Good evening. Thank you very much for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. I am Heena Gambhir. Our worst fears, viewers, have come true. Last thing COVID hit world really needed. Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared war with Ukraine by launching a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, forcing residents to flee. What we can witness right now on the streets of Ukraine is fear and destruction. Look at the visuals that we have got for you throughout the day today. Barrage of sanctions that were announced against Russia by various countries in Europe. The sanctions that were announced by the US as well clearly failed to act as a deterrent, because till about yesterday, the hope was that something might really change, but that didn't happen. As a result, India today is concerned about its 18,000 plus Indians who are stranded in Ukraine today. In fact, most of them are students. Look at how the situation is. We have got visuals from parts of Ukraine wherein people were seen standing in queues outside ATMs because they do not know what is going to happen next. In fact, an Air India flight that was supposed to evacuate Indians stranded in crisis-hit Ukraine was forced to return to Delhi this morning after a notice to airmen was sent to all flights heading to Ukraine. A special flight landed in Delhi earlier, carrying about 182 Indians, and the rest who were supposed to come back today, because the second Air India flight was supposed to go today to Ukraine to bring students back, and then the third flight was scheduled for 26th. Now, all of that can't really happen because the airspace is now not accessible. There are thousands of Indians who are waiting to fly back from Ukraine amid this conflict with Russia. Our focus on Urban Debate tonight is going to be on these students. We want you to hear their plight, the situation that they are in right now, and then of course we will tell you how this entire conflict, this war kind of a situation, is going to impact India, and what are the options that are there in front of India in this particular situation, because this is going to have a significant impact, viewers, on India's economy. Now, why I said worst fears have come true earlier and why this was the last thing that the COVID hit world economy really needed, because slowly the economy around the world was limping back to normalcy, in India as well. Just when we thought, things are back to normal, we had Omicron-led third wave coming. Now that wave is slowly going away, and we again thought that maybe the economic recovery will be back. But ever since this news of Russia-Ukraine crisis has come, we are seeing impact in terms of rise in crude oil prices. In fact, today, the Brent crude price crossed the $105 per barrel mark as well. Stock markets, it was a bloodbath literally that we saw on stock markets on Dalal Street today, because this is how the global stock markets have also reacted in the last few hours. The impact was visible on Indian Dalal Street as well. There was carnage literally on Dalal Street. In fact, the Sensex closed with a cut of about, market experts say that this was the 10th worst market crashes that we have seen in the history so far. Apart from this, the investors have lost about 10 lakh crore rupees in just one day. So that's going to be our focus over the next 60 minutes on Mirror Now. But before we talk about the options that are there, we want to speak to the students. We are joined by the students who are still stranded in Ukraine, and we'll also be joined by Ashish Giri, who is a student, in fact, who has managed to return from Ukraine. We are joined by Shiban, who is still in Ukraine, Ramiz, who's also in Ukraine. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Shiban, can you tell us how the situation is right now, where you are?
I'm just outside Kiev. Good evening, Mirror. Just outside, it is the city, a small city of 200,000 people, I think so. And it is just on the border of Kiev. Kiev is some 5 kilometers away from the city. This is known as Bravary. And it is the border area with Russia, only 200 kilometers away from Russia. We had some bases, army bases and warehouses here. which were bombed or rocketed. I don't understand exactly, but it was heard right in the morning. It was 5 a.m. And the latest was there was a army base which burned all. It's still burning. Some 2 hours later, some 2 hours. Yes. So the situation is very now. It's I think Indian students may have done a very I think very wrong thing that they have not left earlier. They were when everything was okay, but they did not left with some reason. They waited maybe for the Air India the evacuation flight, and sadly the only one took off. So let us hope for how it is. This time it is calm over here, but on the border areas, there the full war is going on.
Okay, on the border areas, you're telling us, Shiban, full war is going on. At least inside the city, things are slightly better. Shiban is a businessman who is in Ukraine, an Indian businessman in Ukraine. Shiban, I'm requesting you to stay on with us. Ashish Giri, who's a student who's just returned from Ukraine, is also live with us. Ashish, thank you for joining us here on Mirror Now. You've managed to come back in the first and the only flight so far that has managed to brought back Indians from Ukraine. Are you in touch with people there, your friends maybe who are still stranded there? How is the situation like?
Ma'am, I am still in Ukraine, ma'am. I am in hostel, Ukraine. Our flight is cancelled, and my some friends, those who have flight today, and they are still in Kiev. They are stuck in Kiev, and ma'am, I think so, ma'am. The situation is very good, not very good. Good in where we lived in Chernivtsi. There is everything is normal, but we don't know, ma'am, what happened next. But my I talked with my friend and he said that कीव में कुछ अच्छा नहीं है वहाँ लोग लीव कर रहे हैं इनफैक्ट यूक्रेनियन स्टूडेंट those who are in this university they are also going their parents calling them they are going and in also keep the peoples are leaving their houses I don't know they are going to the safe places they are coming to the Romania borders and ma'am I am in Chernivtsi and they are near the Romania border and I don't know. I think so. We are evacuated by Indian government, but I don't know when. We don't know. Ma'am, total confusion, and our professor is also confused on that topic.
Okay, so you're still in Ukraine, Ashish. Stay with us, please. We have Ramiz as well, another student who is in Ukraine too. Ramiz, thank you for speaking with us here on Mirror Now. Tell us where you are, how is the situation is around you, how many of you are there?
Yes, hi, my name is Ramiz and I'm currently in the Ternopil city. It's in a western part of Ukraine and here is all like here almost there are 250 Indian students out here. Some of them managed to get back to India in the first flight of Air India, and some of my friend are in Kiev. They had the flight today morning, but it was cancelled, so they are stuck there.
Where are they right now, the students who were supposed to come back in the second flight, Ramiz?
Yeah, students are they were in the airport, but because they don't have any access, so then the embassy told them to contact them either, or our university also arranged one special bus for them to bring them back to our university and to give them a place to live in the hostel or apartment here.
Those two
Okay,
cities,
and
Ternopil,
Shiban, if I can come back to you. Shiban, if I can come back to you, can you tell us a little bit about how... Yes, go ahead, please.
These students, Ashish and Ramiz, they are studying in the West Ukraine, and West Ukraine is as on this moment it is free. It's not war torn zone. it's free from war, and everybody is from the other side parts of the Ukraine are being evacuated to those areas. Even the embassy of India is intending, I think so, to evacuate all the Indians to that part where from the access is easy to the Eastern Europe, I mean Poland or Romania or somewhere else. So as the flights can be taken and the students can reach back home. It's good luck for them. They are studying there in that part of Ukraine. Other parts, I mean Kiev, Kharkov, Donetsk, all the areas are very much disturbed as on today, and the students may be facing problems there. Let us see. Embassy is very much active,
Okay.
more active than before. So I hope so everything will be all right and all we citizens of India will be safe.
Shiban, could you tell us, what is the kind of impact this is having on you? Because I believe you're doing business there. How is the situation? Because the visuals that we've got, they are a little scary. We can see fear, destruction. We are also seeing, people going out of their homes, queuing outside ATMs, probably to, take out some money to secure some supplies as well. So how is it like for you?
It's a war. It's a war. We are in a time when it's not going to be war, but it is war now. And I am in import and export business. I import tea from Sri Lanka and export timber to India. Import was affected when the first 200 in 214 when all this happened. So the import has affected very much from that time, and the export was good, but I think in this time there will be no banking will be working, ports are closed, so it will affect. It's war, and in war nobody is spared, so everyone gets affected, so obviously it will affect the whole business. So but it's our choice. We have chosen the country, we live here, we do the business here. I'm from last 35 years here. You can say that my here got
You don't want to come back
the voice.
given the current circumstances?
No, nowhere to go. I'm basically from Kashmir and Kashmiri Pandit, and I have nowhere to go. In 90s, I chose this country because Kashmir was not worth for us to live. So don't know. That's the problem.
Okay.
We can go to India or
Ramiz,
somewhere, but we
how
have
many
to
of you are... Okay. Ramesh, can you tell us, what are the circumstances that you are in right now? Is it okay for you to step out of your hostel where you are? How is the situation around where you are currently located? Because Shiban is telling us that, in Western Ukraine, the situation is slightly better as compared to other affected areas.
Yes, Sivan is very right. Like we are in the western part, and it's very safe right now here. And in the morning, I went out to buy groceries to have a stock for like 1 week. We don't know how long we have to stay like this. So yes, we went out, but it's a chaos. It's a total chaos. But and as the airports are closed,
panic is everywhere.
as the airports are closed, we can see and the public transport is also closed in the city now because of the safety measures. So public private vehicles, they are carrying their private vehicles and going towards the border of the western country. Like we have border with the Poland here. It's not much far. It's all like takes 3 to 4 hours, and the Ukrainian citizen do not need visa for that. So most of them are heading towards the border side to be safe, but we Indian don't have that special facilities because we need visa for that purpose. So we are staying in the apartment and hostels.
So you have
that's
to stay
absolute.
indoors. Is there some helpline that is available to you, Ramesh? What kind of help are you
Yes,
getting
like
from the Indian
the
government
helpline,
there?
the embassy has given out the helpline number. If we need anything, we can contact them. The Indian embassy really do great job. They always responds very quickly and immediately. So for now we are safe, but we don't know what will happen next because in the morning there was a blast, a missile blast in the Ivano-Frankivsk, which is not very far from my city. It's just like 2 hours journey. So we can't say that the western part is also safe now because Ivano is also in a western part and there was a bombing and there are also 200 almost students in Ivano-Frankivsk.
War is
Okay.
going on. War is
Shiban,
important.
now what
Hanji,
do you have
yes.
family as well there, Shiban? How many people are there
Yes,
with you
ma'am.
right now? And in your, locality where you stay, how many more Indians are there? Have you spoken to them? What is it that they have to say right now? What is it that they would like to say to the Indian government?
In my locality, we are two Indian families here. One is has gone to India from last 3 months, and he is in Delhi with his wife. But his children and grandchildren are here, and his wife is Russian, so he has his relatives and everything is, so he has a less problem. Me with my wife, she's also Indian, and I have two sons. One was supposed to come today, but the flights have been cancelled. He's living in Poland, and so luckily he will stay there. The younger one is with me, but he is panicked. But his office has been shifted to Ivano-Frankivsk, so he may go with his office. But their office
Yes,
has
can you repeat?
also their office has
Okay.
also arranged evacuation for the families. So if we will like, we can go. But we have everything here, property and business and everything. So we are trying to do see the if something good will come out, war will stop, and we don't have to move anywhere. Once we have left Kashmir and we know what's leaving your place, so
Well, absolutely.
we are waiting for the
So
good
we are
thing.
all
Yes.
hoping that, situation gets better soon. Ramesh, I want to give you the last word. What will you like to say to the Indian government? Because, of course, alternative arrangements are going to be made hopefully soon because now the airspace is not accessible. So the flights that were supposed to reach Ukraine cannot. But many of you who want to come back, what will you like to say?
I appreciate the Indian government, Indian embassy's move, as they have. I have spoken to the embassy, and they have told me that you stay in your place. We are
Okay.
trying to do some kind of camp in the western Ukraine, and where from there will be easy. Then they
All
will
right.
arrange maybe some without visa or something to the Romania or to the
Yeah, no.
Poland, and will lift us from there. That's a good move from the Indian government. I appreciate it.
Okay. Ramesh, okay. Ramesh, you also wanted to
Yes.
say something?
Yeah. Just couple of minutes back, we received one screenshot, which is from Indian Embassy Twitter. Like a team from Indian Embassy of Hungary has been dispatched to the border post of Johanny, where they will coordinate to facilitate the exit of Indian from Ukraine. Like they are planning to take like evacuate us from the Hungary border because we share Hungary border also from the Ukraine. I just want to request all the Indian authorities to just help us and evacuate us as soon as possible because before it was like all our university and all were saying that you guys are in western part and here it is not much risk and all, but But yesterday we were doing offline classes. We are been requesting our dean rector that please do online so we can go back to our country. But they were saying no, the situation is normal. If you still want to go, you can go, but the classes will be offline. So for that reason, many students were not going back to the country because the classes were there the most priority. And but now they suddenly changed today to the online. So if like they knew it is going to happen, then still they didn't take any action.
Hmm. All right. Thank you very much, both of you, Shaban as well as Ramiz, for speaking with us here on Mirror Now, telling us how the situation is. We really hope and pray for your safety there, and hopefully the evacuation plan will be made soon, and most of you who want to come back are brought back into India. Thank you for the moment for joining us and speaking with us. Let's also talk about the options that India has at this point in time, because the situation is a little difficult right now. We have Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti, former Secretary MEA, joining us on the broadcast. Shaboti Ray Dadwal, author, energy and security analyst, live with us. Andrew Holland, CEO, Vendors Capital Public Markets Alternate Strategies LLP, joining us, and Major General Sanjay Meston, retired defense expert, also live with us on the broadcast this evening. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on Urban Debate on Mirror Now. Pinak Ranjan Chakrabarti, I want to begin the discussion with you because we've had a discussion on the crisis earlier as well, and that time we were speaking about how probably the beginning of de-escalation has happened, but now the situation is completely different. What do you make of how things have moved in the last 24 hours? And do you feel that the sanctions that were being announced yesterday by a number of countries against Russia have really failed to act as a deterrent?
Clearly, they have not deterred President Putin from doing what he is doing. Basically, this is a saga of unkept promises and mistakes, historical mistakes that have occurred ever since the Soviet Union broke down. And it's on record what has happened about NATO's expansion towards the thing. There are mistakes all around. I mean, I'm not apportioning mistake to one side or the other. There were mistakes. They did not read the situation properly. Particularly during the Yeltsin era. And then, of course, when Putin came, he also looked at it. And now President Putin feels that the time has come now to push back, as we say in diplomacy. And that is what he has been doing, despite all the negotiations, the diplomacy, etc. And I think the missed opportunities of the past, I mean, all sides must be ruining that day when they could have come to an arrangement and sorted this out, and we wouldn't have had this unfortunate war, which does not help anybody. And I think there are no winners ultimately in wars, and everybody suffers. And the Indians who are there, I think the advice has been given to them to stay put. There are 4 countries that border towards the southwest and west: Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and Romania, and also Moldova. I mean, I don't know what the government is thinking about making arrangements, but land borders is an option. And I think something is happening on the Hungarian border with Ukraine. But those who can travel to the border, and they will be facilitated and can be picked up from Budapest or somewhere else. So there are things in motion already, and you've already discussed the helplines and the emergency numbers that are there. But even a government, even the Indian government, which has, by the way, a huge depth of experience in airlifting Indians from difficult areas or war zones, but even they would require some time, because it would require coordination with different governments for sending aircraft and seeking permission for overflights. These take time. It cannot be done, at the drop of a hat. And having done it myself, I know that. So our colleagues in the ministry must be working overtime, probably overnight also, to do all these things. So let's wait and see, and let's be hopeful about rescuing all our compatriots who are stuck in this war zone. And I hope they will be done, and I hope they are safe, they keep safe. The best way for them is to stay where they are and try and stay in the institutions where they are. And because others are there around them, they can get local help and that kind of support. So I think that is the best. And now, of course, we don't really know what exactly the objectives of the Russian, advance into the forces they will do. Will they capture Kiev? What will they do, or will they? I really don't know. I mean, but one thing is sure that this government in Kiev, the Russians are probably going to get rid of them, or I don't know what. I don't think this government can last anymore, and there will be some other government which can perhaps do some deal with Russia. So I don't know. I'm speculating here, but that's the most likely outcome.
Okay. So your message to the Indians who are stranded there is that they should stay where they are, as the government is now going to come out with some kind of an evacuation plan, because as we speak, we're also getting to know a meeting started in the evening between Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, and External Affairs Minister, and many other officials also joined that particular meeting. We look forward to what happens there. Major General Sanjay Meston, what is your assessment of how the situation is right now, and where is it really headed? What does Russia really want? Because till about last week, it appeared that he was talking about sending troops to the eastern part as a peacekeeping mission, which of course US called as nonsense. But today, it's completely different.
I would like to put it across this way, that since you asked the word assessment, in the army parlance, we always call it review of the situation. So you have asked a very correct question. So my take on this is, everything starts with what was the Russian aim. And the aim starts what is the president listed out. And therefore he has defined some political objectives which have not been listed out. But in his speech, one can gather those political objectives. Few of the political objectives which President Putin has given out are very, very clear. I think one of those were demilitarization, de-Nazify. Then is, don't allow them or prevent Ukraine to join NATO, and also prevent them to become nuclear. And I think one of the other ones was that demilitarization, of course, are highlighted, is, prevent genocide. Now, if these were the stated so-called political objectives, these have to be translated to military objectives. Now, coming on to prevention of genocide, I think they felt that genocide, so-called genocide, which they have perceived by Ukrainian forces, was prevalent in Donbass area. To that extent, they have eliminated that issue, and therefore they have captured the Donbass area, and they have got a military foothold or a launch pad for further operations. Now, as on date, how these political objectives will translate to military objectives? Firstly, what is the ground assessment of the troop deployment? I think Ukrainians are surrounded all sides, from the northwest, from the north, from the east, and including southeast, where the Sea of Hormuz and Black Sea, etc., there, and Crimea is there. So let's put it bluntly, they are surrounded, except for these so-called 4 or 5 countries which are joining them little in the southwest. Now, keeping that in mind, strategically, what the Russians have done is they have suppressed the air defense weapon systems of Ukraine, and therefore the end state of this is that they have total air supremacy. So ground operations now can be progressed unhindered without any interference by so-called enemy air, in which case it implies Ukrainian air. That has been eliminated. Now, coming on to the sea front is totally dominated by the Russians, and therefore they have total domination. So now comes the ground forces. Now, what will the ground forces do? This is absolutely listed out in it flows out from the political objectives. Now, if demilitarization is the zone, is one of the intents, Can it be achieved if they continue to hold Donbass? The answer is very clear, no. What do they have to do? Therefore, they have to keep
Okay.
creeping in and capture some of the prominent cities, including Kiev. And that can only be achieved once they achieve a change of regime. That is their one of the very, very clear objectives. See, certain of the objectives have a fallout automatically. Like if once Ukraine has been captured, or some areas have been captured, obviously they cannot
Right.
go nuclear. They cannot join NATO. So certain issues are fallout, but certain are very direct. Now the issue is how they will prevent Nazify. I don't know how they are going to do that. Can they change the psychology of the people in Western Ukraine? Again, I say it is quite difficult because there is a 3 decades generation has now passed over, grown up in that. They have grown up with liberal values, freedom.
And we all
democracy.
know, sir, that this
Would they like
crisis
to-
has been going on for quite some time. Of course, we'll have to wait and watch how things really unfold. But Andrew Holland, now this is having an impact on the economy as well, not just in India, around the world. Today, we saw investors in India losing about some 10 lakh crore rupees. How do you view the situation, and what should really, the investors be doing right now?
I think investors should, just sit on the sidelines for the moment. There's a lot of pieces unraveling. We still have to await to see what the West response is in terms of sanctions. We're told they're going to be very severe, and that again could have an impact on commodity prices, particularly oil and other metals, including aluminium. So, that's where the concern is that at a time when anyway central banks were trying to fight inflation, this is a huge impact on it in terms of input costs and inflation. Trying to look through that in terms of what the response might be, and obviously that will have a more telling impact on the market. But if commodity prices remain as high as they are, let's be assured that at some point demand for products will start to fall. And we could end up in a recession in the West, and that's the implications of a prolonged kind of higher commodity prices over the next, say, 2 to 3 weeks or even a month, because we're going to spend more and more.
So you're telling us, sir, that this has the potential to bring recession in the West?
Yes, I think it does, because as if you're sitting in the UK, you're going to be spending, quite a large proportion now of your salary just on your heating costs and food costs. Therefore, your discretionary spending is going to go down very, very quickly. And therefore, if you take a car, for example, the price of cars have to go up. Aluminium makes a very large percentage of the cost. So our discretionary spending is going to move away from spending on even travel. So that's going to be a big impact. We're just getting through COVID. This is something which has a bigger impact on the global economy, and you're seeing that in terms of what's happening with bond yields in the US. They're starting to fall quite dramatically, and that could be the problem that I see now is that the recession, if this is prolonged and it's not quick, could have a big impact.
Okay. Shibonti Ray Dadwal, as we speak, we're also getting visuals of the meeting that was chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to review the situation and how India should really be responding. What is it that you would like to say about what India needs to be extremely cautious about? What could be the possible economic impact for India, of what is happening between Russia and Ukraine?
Thank you for inviting me. Look, there are going to be economic repercussions as in India as it is going to happen to the rest of the world. We can't escape from that. Just by dint of the fact that, as you've seen, that oil prices have already gone up. They have been put on hold for the time being. I think the meeting is also going to be how long can India stave off a rise in oil prices. But we all know that it's going to happen after March 10th. It's already, it was about $98. We managed to hold on. We will continue to hold on, I think, till March 10th, when if the price of oil probably is going to go up further. I don't think India is going to be able to not, kind of inject that into the Indian economy as well. When that happens, it's going to have a cascading effect on every aspect of our lives, of the economy. And it's not just about oil. Russia is not only the second largest producer of gas and the third largest producer of oil, an exporter as well, but it also is a huge food grains and metals producer and exporter. So there's going to be a lot of impact if, right now, of course, Putin has said that supplies are not going to be affected. He's not going to stop or, have any kind of try to stop any supplies of fossil fuels or anything. But my personal opinion is that if the sanctions are going to start hitting Russia, then I think he will, just do whatever it takes. He will probably stop all oil. He will definitely affect the export of oil and gas. European Union, I was looking at some of the interviews today, and they were saying that they have got themselves ready for any contingency for the time being. But these are all going to be very short-lived. And in time, and with winter still, winter is going to last for a few more months, then if Russia stops all oil and gas supplies to Europe, then Europe is going to feel the pinch. I don't think LNG, first of all, even the shipping has been targeted around Ukraine. And gas pipelines, they control the network of gas pipelines in Europe, the Gazprom. So they are going to be turning off the spigots, I think. And that is going to be having a cascading effect all over the world, because oil is a world market. Gas is still a regional market, but it will affect Europe. So definitely it's going to have an effect on India as well. We're not going to be left out. The government is holding on for the time being right now, but wait till March 10th. And then if the war continues, then we will all feel the pinch.
Andrew Holland, specifically, what is the kind of impact are you, seeing that could be there for India if this continues like this? Because it's not just Brent crude, but if you look at stock markets as well, it was the 10th biggest crash in the history that we saw today.
Let's just look at today. I mean, you've seen, the rupee fell, depreciated by 1.5%. The oil price rose by 5%. So there's a 6% hit already on your import bill of oil. So, it's going to have a huge impact on the government finances. Obviously, the current account deficit will rise. Borrowing costs will rise because you'll have to you'll be squeezed in terms of your ability to borrow. So all of these things will impact India in the very short term. And I think in terms of the markets, our valuations anyway were quite high. So we could see further retraction in the markets, depending on how the response is from the West in terms of sanctions going forward. And how quickly the market feels that this problem with Ukraine and Russia can be resolved, if it can be resolved in the very short term. So I think the markets are going to continue to go on this. It's been volatility anyway since the beginning of the year. But I think the problem for foreign investors looking at India now is that we're kind of a weak link within the emerging markets. We're a big importer of oil. It's going to hurt the currency, and it's going to lead to a higher deficit and therefore higher borrowing costs for Indian companies. So whichever way I look at it in the very short term, India is going to be off the radar for foreign investors.
Okay. Pinak Chakravarti, as we speak, there are updates that we are getting from Ukraine thick and fast. The Russian military has destroyed about 74 Ukrainian military facilities. That includes 11 air bases. And apart from that, we are being told that about 40 Ukrainian soldiers, around 10 civilians have been killed by Russian shelling. This is what is being reported right now. Do you still see some hope of a meeting between Biden and Putin, some kind of an effort that can be made by the world leaders to stop it, or do you think now this is irreversible?
Well, firstly, I think the Russian strategy is very clear. That is to degrade or destroy the military facilities so that the Ukrainians do not have that facility to fight back. And so that is for sure. So I think that is why all the airports or the Air Force stations and other sort of missile batteries, etc., have been targeted and destroyed. So basically, it is also part of the overall demilitarization goal that Russia or President Putin had announced. So I think that is the military strategy on that side. Now, the other point that you raised about, I'm sorry, I forgot the other point. Can you just repeat that?
I was just trying to understand, sir, given the current circumstances, do you think that a summit that was being talked about between Biden and Putin can still happen? Or is this irreversible? What is happening in Ukraine right now? It's a, all-out war that we are now going to be prepared for.
Well, I don't rule out any telephonic discussion or some kind of contacts and channels being kept open. But I don't think the telephonic contact between the two leaders is going to deflect Russia from her political objectives, which seem now very clear after the speech that President Putin has given. So I think whatever negotiations or summits, etc., that will come post this operation, in the sense that once Russia has achieved her objectives, then Russia might say, okay, now let's discuss. What do you want? Let's talk about whatever security architecture, etc. And Russia has made it very, very clear that it will not allow NATO to come into any country that is on her borders. So I think that's the objective, and that they will achieve that by demilitarizing Ukraine and making sure that NATO doesn't get a foothold there.
Okay. Major General Sanjay Meston, in a situation like this, what should be India's approach? Because an important meeting happened, it just got over. We are yet to hear from the government as to what has been decided. But some reports are suggesting that Prime Minister Narendra Modi may speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin tonight. So what should be India's response in a situation like this?
Yeah, India's response, actually, I would say we have to walk the tightrope, and more so the way situation is emerging, we have to really maintain a very delicate and fine balance. We cannot at this stage, show our inclination to either of the sides, whether to the Western world or to the Russian, or cannot also remain neutral. So it's a very, very precarious situation. I think India's response presently should be, the immediate concern should be to get evacuation of the students who are there from whichever way it is. I think the only possibility now seems to be by land, that is either from the Western countries through the West, or maybe even requesting Russia to allow them a safe passage, maybe to Belarus, or even to certain southern parts of Russia, or maybe to the basically to the southern parts of Russia. Now, coming on to Prime Minister's call to President Putin, I think he can only just tell him what are the ramifications. It is not good for the world order and so forth. But what even Mr. Pinaka was mentioning, I think now there is nothing to stop President Putin besides achieving his political military objectives. But anyway, Prime Minister of India has to make an attempt. and maybe even speak to the President Zelensky in Ukraine, because that request has been made by their ambassador in a very desperate condition. So some kind of diplomatic effort we have to reveal to the world. And since Prime Minister Modi is rated as one of the topmost global leaders, I think perhaps he may have to, or the government of India may have to take some little positive steps to show to the world that we are doing something. However, a very critical issue remains. See, firstly, in the immediate neighborhood, it does not affect us. Strategic neighborhood, it does not affect us, because I would say strategic neighborhood extends for us up to West Asia or maybe Central Asian republics, or East, of course. So it is not in our strategic neighborhood also, but it has a lot of repercussions in terms of economic cost and the escalation in price rise. Therefore, India will not today have to start even looking for alternative energy resources. Maybe we may have to now tap on through Central Asian republics and maybe Iran, though economic sanctions are there, and maybe even the West probably may have to now resort to getting these things from Iran or the Central Asian republics. Reason being, because as rightly brought out by her, I think if this does not happen, then the economic costs are going to be very heavy on the Western world. Price rise, so the domestic population in West, including US, will have a lot of problems. So therefore, it's a very tricky thing. So I think India can explain all these facets to the President Putin, and work with President Biden, because some kind of de-escalation measures have to be thought of. See, to start a war is easy, to end a war is extremely difficult. And India can and perhaps should have a major role now, because global rating is very high of Prime Minister Modi, but we need to be active, and without disassociating from either of the sides, because both with Russia and with the US, we have strategic partnership. We have strategic engagement. We get military hardware from both countries. Plus, tomorrow with China, whatever it is, the cord is going to be given to us. So therefore, we have to really, I would say, maintain a very fine balance. And maybe as a leading statesman in the world, Prime Minister Modi can explain the ramifications, the consequences to so-called these leaders who have actually lost their balance. Thank you.
Interesting point, sir, you've made. Pinakranjan Chakravarti, now, in your opinion, what should be the right approach given the interest that India has both in Ukraine as well as Russia?
Well, I think as the general said, that we cannot be seen to be taking sides here, because we have enormous strategic interests in both countries. I mean, one could argue one way or the other, but we have nothing to gain by supporting one side against the other. And in any case, our strategic autonomy demands.
But can we continue to stay neutral?
Well, what we will probably sort of be doing something quietly. I mean, in case, for example, if this conversation between PM Modi and President Putin takes place, I think there may be some elements where we can make some suggestions or something like that. But I doubt if our saying anything at this stage is going to deflect President Putin from what he has already decided to do. So I think we have to really look at a situation where maybe we would be saying that, can you bring this to an end quickly so that there is some peace, there's no more bloodshed, etc. And then some diplomacy, some other, talking can be given a chance. Apart from that, I don't see what India can do. We don't have the facilities or the abilities or the capacities to influence. I mean, if the US could not influence, why do you think India can?
But, the way other countries are coming out and imposing sanctions, announcing sanctions against Russia, are quite vocal about what they feel about the current situation, are condemning the act of, Mr. Vladimir Putin, the Russian president. My point, my question to you, Mr. Chakravarti, is that can India really, continue being in this position?
Yes, we can. And I don't think sanctions has ever been a tool of Indian diplomacy. We have gone out, we have talked, we have decided to sort of negotiate or we do some compromise, give and take. But I don't think sanctions we have used for this kind of thing. And there are, of course, people can say some instances where in our neighborhood we may have taken some steps which may look like sanctions. But no, we haven't really used sanctions, and never publicly saying that, I am sanctioning this country or that country. This is what we are doing with you. Even with Pakistan, we have not sanctioned. It is Pakistan which has stopped trade with India. So I don't think that India's policy has ever been to go down that route, the sanctions route, because we believe that it doesn't really work. Remember when in '98 when we did the nuclear tests, the West sanctioned us. Did it work? No. Today we are a nuclear weapons power. So I don't think we should go down that route. But if your question is what India should be doing or what we should do, there are some expectations depending on leanings, etc., that India should condemn Russia. Why should we condemn Russia? Why should we? After all, the US also did very similar things. Invaded Iraq, invaded Libya, invaded Afghanistan. What happened then? We did not condemn. We, of course, expressed our disappointment or whatever. But in great power politics, condemnation doesn't carry you very far.
Absolutely. Andrew Holland, now apart from clearly the rise in crude oil prices that we are witnessing, stock markets are falling. There are metals which are also seeing a spike in prices. In India, gold prices are also rising quite sharply. Current level is about something that we saw in January 2021. Anything that can be done to probably reduce the possible impact that you're talking about? You spoke about recession for the West. For India, what is it that you're expecting, and what can be the right approach? Can there be certain precautions that can be taken by the government right now?
I don't think there's anything the government can do right now. I mean, obviously, it's an event which is playing out, and I think one of the other concerns is in allowing Russia to do what they're doing. The change in the world order, and there's also now increasingly kind of talks about China and Taiwan. So these are kind of things I think the market's going to play around with. What could our government do? I think maybe we could see that the Reserve Bank of India maybe in March, rather than kind of increase rates, may hold where they are again. Just on the back of the fact that there's a lot of uncertainty globally, so to help the economy, support the economy and industry, maybe the central bank could do something. But I think at this point, obviously the domestic economy is starting to pick up. It's really the input costs and the inflation impact which is going to hurt India in the very short term. We can try and defend the currency to some extent, but I don't see that would really again help us in the very short term. So I think the government could help industry going forward, but I think at this time it's a little bit early to say what measures they would take, because it's an evolving kind of moving parts are so many. I think it's probably best is just to sit on the sidelines and see how it plays out a little bit more over the next few days, particularly towards the weekend.
Okay. Shubhanti Ray Dadwal, now as far as crude oil exports from Russia are concerned, for India, the percentage is negligible, less than about 1% odd. So do you think probably this is the time to boost our supplies from other countries where we rely heavily on for our imports of crude, in a way to somehow insulate the impact that India could really have in the long term? Of course, the inflationary impact is something that we cannot really avoid.
Look, there are no supply problems as of now. And there could be if Russia decides to stop exports, in which case can the others, we get about 63% of our imports, oil imports comes from the Middle East. about 14% from Africa, and 13% from America, approximately. Now, can the OPEC and the rest of these countries, can they increase? We can also buy from the open market, of course, from, these are all bilateral deals, but we can also buy extra oil from the market. But ultimately, it's not a supply issue. It is going to be, and recently we saw what OPEC has been doing in conjunction with Russia, of course. The OPEC plus countries, what they did. I mean, for them, the interest is to increase prices. So they're quite happy that the prices are going to go up. And also the Middle Eastern countries, OPEC in particular, minus Russia, they say that they are producing whatever they can produce right now, barring Saudi Arabia, which can produce an extra 2 million barrels a day. But they have problems also, and I think they're not going to do that. I think Biden has already talked to them. Can America, can they fill up the gap? Well, they can, but it's not really, as I said right in the beginning, it's not a supply issue. It is a price issue. And it doesn't matter whether there are enough supplies. If there is any kind of, the oil market is a very political market. If the price is affected because of any one issue, not necessarily production, then there is going to be a kind of a cascading effect on the entire oil market. And our problem is not supply, our problem is price. And that is where we're going to get affected. In terms of gas, it's the same. Because gas prices are linked to oil prices. If the price of oil is going to go up, price of gas is going to go up. We import about 50% of our gas. So that is also going to be affected. And if what America has been trying to tell its Asian and other allies, that you please increase your coal intake and free up more LNG for Europe so that Europe is not affected by lack of Russian gas, I don't really think that's going to happen because the 4 largest LNG importers are all Asian. So they are not going to be able to do that. And why should they increase coal intake? Because of climate change issues.
Right.
So it's one thing for the European Union and for America to be, to say these things. It's very rhetorical. But in reality, the fact is that nothing is going to happen. It's going to be prices and it's going to affect the economy, not just India's, but across the board.
Right. Interesting points you've made, Shubhanti Dadwal, and thank you very much, all of you, for joining us here on this discussion on Urban Debate on Mirror Now this evening. We are now going to look forward to the press conference by Foreign Secretary Harsh Shringla that's going to happen at 9:15, just a few minutes from now, and we'll keep you ahead on this big story developing in Ukraine.